Queen, how are you?
I'm great. A little sluggish this morning. Not gonna lie.
What's
But
that
how
about?
are you doing?
What's the sluggish? How's your weekend and your week been?
Well, I've started back working. So it's full-time work. My son is now in basketball and today starts football. So I'm ripping and running. I went from basically kind of working on my own time, doing my own thing. Now I'm like nonstop.
Yeah.
So, I'm just trying to get adjusted to life at this point.
Yeah. That's a lesson in how things change quickly and how everything is like a season. That reminds me of how sometimes in life I'm like, really there's nothingness, and it's like, oh, this is so slow if I'm not working, or if it's just like, what am I doing? And it's like, you know what, really enjoy this, because before you know it, life is gonna change and you could be very busy. And so I think there's definitely a lesson in like being present, being grateful for whatever time you have it, whatever moment it is, whether it's a lot or nothing, because either way, in one of those you're gonna be wanting, craving the other. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. No, you're right. I definitely took it for granted. I was able to work on my business and binge watch TV shows. Now I'm like, which way is up? I don't have any time for that, but I do enjoy what I'm doing now. I'm just trying to find a balance to it.
Gotcha. Well, congratulations on the new role.
Hey, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, well, welcome Black to Black Around the World, a space devoted to having conversations that connect, enlighten, heal, build community amongst Black people globally. I'm Ray.
And I'm Queen.
Wonderful. Queen, what kind of moment have you had that embodied community since the last time we spoke?
So my son's birthday just passed. It was on January 26th. And he just recently joined a little local basketball team here, like a rec league. And, I'm kind of like last minute on everything, not gonna lie. And so I decided, you know what, we're gonna celebrate your birthday on that Friday by going to main event. And so I told his team on Thursday about it. I'm like, hey, I know it's last minute, but if y'all can come celebrate Mac's birthday tomorrow night, it'll be great. I didn't expect anybody to show up, just because it was last minute. And so that Friday came and we were there, and his coach and his son walked in, and I was just blown away. It wasn't the whole team, but the fact that the coach came, I was like, wow. And the coach was like, I really make it a point to support my players. That we normally show up to birthday parties, and my son is the only kid, and his son was the only kid at Mac's birthday party. And so I was just really appreciative of that. And I was like, dang, I felt the love, Mac felt the love. So that was definitely my moment in the community for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what did it mean to Mac for that? Did he appreciate it?
Girl, yes. When that boy walked in, I'm telling you, I gave them their game cards and they were ghost. They had a ball, and his grandmother went around and followed them, and the pictures she captured, it was amazing. So you could tell he had a great time.
I love that.
So what was your moment in community?
My moment in community. So I think we were talking about the ups and downs. I've had some ups and downs. I'm a little sluggish too as well, but I'm excited. One, I'm excited because after this, I'm having a brunch at my house, which that is my jam. If anybody knows me, I will throw a brunch, And I used to have these annual like New Year's Day brunches because I couldn't party on New Year's Day, and so I would have New Year's Day the brunch, kind of like we did the virtual event on New Year's Day. Those are my New Year's celebrations. It's the day, not into the night. But having one brunch today, as I relocated back into my house temporarily, and I'm like, I'm gonna do all the things that I love doing when I have my own space. And so I'm gonna have friends over for brunch. That will definitely be a moment in community because I always do it potluck style. People are gonna bring whatever it is they want to bring. But my moment in communities past is recently I had my car broken into. Was hella mad. I was on Instagram, which I don't normally do.
You were.
you saw me. I don't get on Instagram and tell people, but I'm like, tell people about my life. But I feel like mostly, I think what prompted it is one, Instagram. I'm always like talking about the good things that happen in my life. And I was like, no, y'all gonna see when I'm really pissed off, when things aren't going well. I want to let y'all know a little bit of both. And I got on there talking about how somebody broke into my car. And really, they only stole my yoga mat and my custom made bag that I got made in Ghana that had my name engraved on it. But my thing was, my window was busted. Like it's nothing. It's like I felt violated. I still kind of feel violated. I just, got to cleaning the glass. I didn't drive for a week, but I have been calling and there's no window. Oddly enough, I feel like a window is a window is a window, a glass is a glass is a glass, and they're telling me there's no window for my specific car available or around the nation. I don't understand. And my sister's like, you can get it fixed. Don't give up. I'm like, I've called every window place now. She wants me to like hop state to state calling window places. I'm like, they told me. But anyways, long story short, like my friends, even when my friend didn't know that I can actually get the glass, she sent me money to help me pay for it. And then I had someone come because I was gonna give up the car. I'm like, I'm selling it. I'm done. I'm done. I was like, I'm abandoning the car. I'm a little dramatic. But my friend was like, listen, I'll come over. My friend Hank was like, I'll come over and make you a temporary window. I was like, okay. And so basically he came and put the plastic and the tape up, and I started driving again. I went and I cleaned the glass out. And so really that's been my moment of community. It's just like people kind of like surrounding me during that time of tragedy. Tragedy turned to triumph.
You've been off on Instagram. You were like this shithole country.
I did. That was my like, welcome back to America. I feel like. Anyways, that was my moment in community.
Well, that's beautiful. Hank is a good guy, so shout out to Hank.
He's a good guy. He is a good guy. So I'm super grateful. He's really been there. Cause like returning back to Tulsa has been really weird. I've connected with some people, but there's people who like help me kind of integrate back while I'm here temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
she made sure she threw that in there.
Yeah. Anyways, what are we talking about today?
Oh man, we're talking about some great stuff. It actually kind of go hand in hand with the past episode that we had, but it's restorative justice and what that is and what that looks like. And we're gonna have a great conversation with the gentleman by the name of Xavier. I don't know. Are we giving Xavier's last name? Do we even have Xavier's?
We'll let him share that.
Yeah, we'll let him introduce himself.
I don't know who he's running from or what, what's going on. So
yeah, and it's funny, I was able to have a sit down with Xavier, and he's definitely good at what he does. Yeah. It was funny, it was just like an introduction, but then after the call, I'm like, that was a therapy session. Like it felt great. I had to really sit in, my life real quick and figure things out. But, it goes hand in hand, like I said, with some things that we have experienced. I don't know if people noticed, but we kind of, stayed away a little bit from having actual guests because we were still trying to figure out our own tone for the show. And if someone says something, how can we allow them to be them, but also making sure that it's aligned with our mission? And so with restorative justice conversation that I had, it's like, okay, how are we allowing people to work out their struggles, but still they're a part of the community, you know what I mean? So I know there's a great definition that Xavier can go into as far as, what he's doing and the work he's doing, but I just, like I said, having that conversation with him, I'm like, oh, I need this in my life. And we need this in our communities. So yeah.
Yeah. It's been a journey, and I think it's still a journey. I think that particular podcast definitely impacted um our podcasting relationship. And so I've been going back and forth with Xavier. Unless I'm gonna call Xavier our biggest fan because he does listen to the podcast. He does give me feedback. And I think he's probably the only one that's listened to maybe all of them except one of them. And so I'm happy to have him on. I know Xavier from a cohort called New Leaders Council, and it's a nationwide cohort that's focused on developing progressive leaders in each state. And so I met him, it was 2020, I believe, Xavier, and everybody was on Zoom, and we did that cohort on Zoom, and we developed a real communal relationship, and we've been friends ever since. And so it's been nice to see him in that capacity and now evolve into the work that he's doing now. And so I would like to introduce Xavier. Just tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself and what you do. We can get into it.
Yeah, so it's cool to use my last name. Can y'all hear me?
Awesome.
Low.
Okay.
Let me see. Is it a little low? Can you turn it up?
Let's see.
Let me know if it's just me, Queen. Can you hear him well?
I did have to hit my volume button as soon as he said that. I was like, oh.
Boom, boom. All right. How about this? Is that better?
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself.
All right. So yeah, Xavier Graves. You can use my last name definitely. And yeah, it was actually 2021. It feels like we've been knowing each other even longer than that, right? But we're the 2021 cohort.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a little bit of background with me. I am originally from West Texas, Midland, Texas. There's nothing but dirt, oil, and football out there, and some racist white people, but we ain't gonna go into that today because we're centering Blackness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been in Tulsa since 2016. In a previous life, I was a youth pastor doing youth mentorship for like 10 years. But really just needed to like spread my wings outside of the church. And so it's just trying. You didn't know that?
Did you tell me that? I knew you were a youth pastor for 10 years. That's beautiful.
Yeah. I'm still recovering from that. So that's probably why I haven't told you. So I'm still repenting from those sins. But as I'm just kind of trying to spread my wings, really trying to help Black youth, is when I was really trying to figure out how can I do that. And NLC was actually pivotal for me of how to do that, and really centering like the struggle and the punitive nature that we have towards Black boys specifically, that like they're the most punished demographic in all the categories. And so when I was trying to figure out, how can I support Black boys to disrupt the school to prison pipeline, that's when I found Restorative Justice and found this organization that I'm honored to be the executive director of, which is called the Restorative Justice Institute of Oklahoma. The founder kind of has been practicing restorative justice for, I think over a decade here in Texas, Oklahoma, as well as in Illinois. And so she kind of just took me on her wing and really made everything that I learned from books and podcasts and stuff, and just made it really clean and conceptualized it for me. And it's like, oh, this is what I have been doing, but also this is something I can actually do even better with a better framework. And she's a white woman. And so she was knowing that this work is very pivotal in communities of color. So she knew that like, in order for this work to actually get out there, it needed Black leadership. So that's when she gave me the keys to the organization. Like we are partners. She's not my boss. She would never say she's my boss. I'm not her boss. Like we each do our role and to run the organization and bring it to all of Oklahoma, especially the Black diaspora. So also married, it'll be 10 years, February 7th, and got 3 beautiful kids. Dietrich is 3, have Kinley at 7, and then Zoe at 11. Gotta always throw that in.
Yes, definitely. I love that. Love the babies. Thank you for sharing that background with us. You say that restorative justice in other states outside Oklahoma? I mean,
Oh yeah,
I'm sure it is as it stands, but as far as the organization.
our organization, we're centered in Oklahoma, trying to help raise awareness here in Oklahoma, because there's a lot of people, not a lot of people, there's some people that's using the terminology restorative justice, but like,
Yeah.
no, they're just trying to.
Got it. Like on that note, you've had conversations with me and Queen about restorative justice. You're doing the work. There's a lot of people who may know what it means. What is restorative justice exactly? And then if you can get into, if we can talk about how restorative justice relates to the diaspora, but like define restorative justice for those who aren't familiar with it, and what that works looks like, and how you envision doing that in the community.
Yeah, so restorative justice is usually commonly associated with the criminal legal system, but restorative justice can fit into framework, and it's any approach to harm that centers relationships over rules. Like right now, as it stands, when you go to a school, you go to an organization, and just our society, we have laws and rules that govern us to quote unquote try to keep us safe. And you can break a rule and be punished for it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that when you broke that rule, you actually harmed someone. And so there's a saying that I love to use, is that like, not everything that's against the law is harmful, and not everything that's harmful is against the law. So restorative justice is really how do we address harm that centers relationships over rules, where we give the person who has experienced the harm the space they need to heal and to be heard about the impact of that harm, and to like say, this is what I need in order to be restored or healed. And the person who committed that harm, who transferred that harm, what was their background story? Because that harm didn't start with them. They're likely responding to something in their environment that caused them to continue to perpetuate that cycle of harm. So what does that person need? Why did they cause that harm? And then also, what do they need in order to make sure they don't do that harm again? And that usually comes in the form of both support and accountability. There's so many people who think that like restorative justice is just about that support side, but it's like, it's not restorative if you're not holding people accountable to make sure that harm doesn't happen again.
Mm-hmm. Accountability is really important. Yeah. What ways in which do you seek to carry that out? So it's a great idea, but what tangible tools, what tangible systems and things that you'll create in order for that to happen?
Yeah, so we use circles, which is restorative justice is an indigenous practice, not just not to Native Americans, but Native Australians, Native Africans, of this like approach to community that like Ubuntu, I am because you are. So like we have 3 different circles that we really primarily focus on. We have our community connection circles, because whenever that harm happens, like to actually talk about that and have the foundation you need to actually keep someone accountable while also supporting them, you got to see their humanity. So just an ongoing opportunity to get into connection, to get into community with people where you can actually see that they are more than what they've done or what they've experienced, but their whole life, right? And then there's also the conflict circles, which I kind of talked about earlier. It's like someone who experienced harm, someone who transferred harm, they get into dialogue, conflict mediation with also the community as well that's impacted by that harm, being there as well to make sure that their voices are heard too, of how they were impacted. So like, Ray, like when you talked about, your window being busted into, like if your community, if your neighbors found out who it was, right? Like now everyone's going to be suspicious of that person, right? So like they experience some kind of harm as well, and they need to be healed in order for this person to be welcomed back into that community. And then,
sorry,
go ahead.
You're saying the person who busted in the window experienced harm. That is what led them to commit harm. Is what you're saying? Like hurt people. Is that what you're saying? Or
yeah, I say that the violence is the cycle of violence has been going on for since the beginning of time. But I'm also saying that like when someone is harmed, right? When we think of right now as justice is, okay, well, we don't want this person around, so let's throw them in the cage, right? But like that's just perpetuating another harm of throwing someone away. And so they're not going to stay there forever. When they get out, then what are they going to do? We hope that they change, but more times than not, they don't. They actually get worse. So
right. Yeah, I love reading about how restorative justice, started in those indigenous communities like New Zealand, even Rwanda, South Africa, how they have restorative justice courts.
yeah.
And they've used it to address anything from genocide to like petty theft.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
When
And
you
so,
think about it, you had to do something before the police system,
right,
Mhm.
before policing, yeah, do you know anything about that? What that looked like? Like, was that before policing, which like came along during slavery, right? Like, what were
Yep.
people doing to restore relationships,
Yeah, so this is what the forum in native cultures was doing. Like they had these processes of that person going in front of the community. We share a story about forgiveness and some of the materials that we use that comes from an African culture. We're not sure which one. We're not sure if it's even accurate, if it's just a proverb, but like it's saying that like when someone murders someone, family member, all right, and the community finds out that that person murdered their family member, what they do is they tie that person up, roll them out in the middle of a lake, and drop them in the lake, right, tied up.
Wow.
And so the family member that who experienced the loss, they have a choice, right? They can either let that person drown and quote unquote get their justice, or they can choose to save them and then welcome that person back into their family. And it's just like it's just a concept of like, hey, like your grief, your lack of forgiveness, like it's going to impact you. You have to make a choice. You have to make a decision and not just sit with it. And I think that's just beautiful because like there's just so many things in my life where like I just let the pain just sit with me, and I never work on it. So
I got a few people I wouldn't mind taking to the lake. Sorry.
no.
I know. So you Queen stretch your eyes like the lake. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the fishes. I'm here for it.
is the restorative circle conflict circle the same, or is that the same thing, or is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, so I think there's 3 different types of restorative circles that we use. So I usually talk about restorative circles very broadly, and then there's community connection, there's conflict, and then there's also support, clarity, and support circles. So when the harm is not clear who the actual quote unquote victim is, when there's a harm to the community. So like, for example, a situation we worked on here in Tulsa, there's some boys who as at their new school, and we got these big bonds to like upgrade some schools, they poured concrete, and before the concrete set, the boys were doing something that damaged all of this, where they had to redo the pouring, causing the district $1,000 more, right? In order to fix this. Like, what is those boys going to do? Go to every taxpayer and say they're be in front of them in a conflict circle with all of them? No, but what we can do is really see what is the needs behind their behavior, because we feel like every extreme behavior has a need, and really try to help support them to make sure that they have the clarity of why they did it, as well as what they need in order to go forward. And then us as a community kind of keep them accountable and support them to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
So with, go ahead.
I was going to ask, like, on a real life situation, if I knew someone who was like wreaking havoc in the community, am I able to reach out to you all anonymously so you all can kind of be proactive, or do y'all really focus on community and me being, not anonymous and really trying to build this community sense type of thing?
Yeah, if someone knew about someone else causing havoc, but like they were afraid of coming forward, then like to me, that person would be the person who experienced harm, and we always put their needs first. So we're not putting the person who transferring harm, they're not centered, as in we're not prioritizing them as the most important part of the circle. It's the person who's actually experienced the harm. So if you knew someone was going door to door, vandalizing everything, and you were one of those houses that got vandalized, we will take your information, we'll address that person, we'll try to talk to them and find out who is their community that they care about in order to get that support and clarity circle for them. But we also know that like usually when people are hurt, when they experience that hurt, they do want to say, hey, you hurt me. Hey, what you did made me feel this way. And have that like face-to-face interaction. But if they don't want to, they don't have to.
It's beautiful.
Like, so what Queen said, like, what are y'all doing to establish credibility to where someone would trust y'all with a circumstance? Like, I want to call Xavier Restorative Justice. I know he could help us handle that. Are you doing pre-work in order to establish yourself in the community to do certain things like that?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that's what our main focus all of this 2022 was for us. We are very passionate about disrupting the school to prison pipeline, but we also know that whenever there's a harm that's happening in the community, more than likely the person that's experiencing that the most is students, and they're coming to school with that harm, with that trauma. So not only us being connected with schools is helping us on that school to prison pipeline work, it's also helping us having our ears to what's happening in the community. But it's also like, if we can support families that have children, and these are their most precious parts of them, then they will, and we are doing well by the students and by their teachers and by this community. We've seen that a lot more people are become trusting of us.
Right. Because I would think that, because you talked about, going into schools and disrupting the prison to school to prison pipeline, I would think that starting this work as early as possible, even like I would, elementary school, like the concept of like restorative conversations as early as possible, because it's like it becomes culture, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that obviously it's still new to lots of people, but if you were doing this, let's say on the playground, I would think that that's where it starts, like starting as early as possible. Are y'all doing work to like want to bring like some kind of programming to like elementary school so that they grow up with this mindset of like restorative practices,
Yeah, so we're really not trying to be program based, because that's just not sustainable in so many ways. So but yes, so this past winter, I was going up to the Dream Center and doing this kind of work of just really helping young boys realize that like they have already the tools and knowledge within themselves to heal themselves. It's just a matter of like people creating a space for them to do it. And then like when there is conflict around a school can call us to help us mediate that conversation. I've had great circles with young 5th grade students who got in a fight in a bathroom over all the things that was trash talked on the video game the previous day. But we also know that like we can come in with this information, this knowledge, right, and help them to learn these skills. But if their teachers are still being punitive, then that's just a mixed signal and a big frustration. And so we're also like, I think our main hope is to help teachers as well, because they're just like in a pivotal role with these students' lives. So if we can get a teacher to practice restorative justice, they will be able to have a much bigger impact than any program we can start.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So true. That's what I was thinking about, like working with the teachers and setting aside time to teach them these practices. Because when you spend so much time at school, if they're not implementing the strategy, it's kind of like, out of sight, out of mind. Like it is something that everyone should be practicing.
Definitely.
Especially in schools.
So hopefully those things are on the horizon. Like we are also working with the Tulsa Public Schools district office, getting work with them to be able to help with the rollout of more restorative justice tools for their teachers and school leaders.
And so y'all are just getting started in Oklahoma. Are there other communities where y'all visited outside of Oklahoma where y'all seen them further along in the process and being a little successful at carrying it out?
Yeah, we haven't traveled. I personally have not traveled to other organizations doing this work. I've done a lot of research on it, but that's only will take you so far. But my colleague, like I said, she's practiced in Texas. She's practiced in state penitentiaries in Illinois. She's practiced here as well. So she's seen other programs and stuff like that. But yeah, we're just trying to bring that information, those processes here to Oklahoma.
I have a question. So like, do y'all have a website where people can maybe have a one pager so they can start implementing these strategies in their home? Or do you all really rather people call y'all and you facilitate the circle?
That's a great question. Yes, we have a website. We have information. I would not say that there's a document that you can read and just be able to go, because a lot of it is internal work. Like if you're not being restorative towards yourself, it's very hard to be restorative towards anyone else. But we do have affordable and accessible trainings so that people can begin to understand what does it take to be restorative. But our goal is also, we don't want to be an organization that lasts forever. We want to train enough restorative leaders to be restorative in their context, whether that is at home, whether it's at schools, whether it's in political seats in certain offices. Like we just want this information and this framework to be out there so that people are not coming to us, that they know someone in their church that's a restorative leader, they know someone at their school, they know someone that's just right down the street that they can go to if they ever had these conflict or harm that they wanted to pursue without getting the criminal legal system involved.
Did you touch on that training that y'all are doing and how that model? I think that you were saying like y'all even have like online trainings, and then when people go through it, then they can carry out some of the work, and y'all like kind of like expanding your capacity in that way.
Yeah, so we have like 3 different levels of training. Last weekend, we did a great in-person training specifically for the Tulsa community, where we trained, I think, 22 or 24 restorative leaders that just kind of have the framework and to understand that this is an option, that they can see conflict differently, and they can just have the hope that there's alternatives, and how we're kind of continue to ongoing training with them, because 2 days, a day and a half of training is not going to get this. Like I still struggle with it sometimes, of like not being punitive and being restorative. And so like, as now that they are aware of this process, they're aware of this information, this framework, if they see someone that needs it, they can contact us and we can work with them. So it's ongoing training, so they get in life practice with either me and my colleague or one of our other further trained facilitators to do that. But then we also are launching, starting next Sunday, we have a Sunday evening and a Wednesday morning opportunity for people to train online. So they can train anywhere from the state, the country, wherever, where it's a cohort of where we're going through, like, what does cultural competence have to do with this? Because like the way our culture, you know, not just our skin color, but like the culture and way we show up and how we see the world shapes how we experience harm as well as transfer harm. Our traumas, so understanding people's traumas, understanding how to navigate people's traumas, that's going to be a part. Nonviolent communication, and just like, what is the American history of punishment in America, because like you have to understand the context of everything in order to actually make that paradigm shift. And then it's also based on this like psychotherapy model, where it's like like I said, you have to be restorative towards yourself in order to be restorative towards others. So if there's parts of you that you're not liking, that you are dealing with, that you have resentment for because you betrayed yourself at some point, like when you see that quality in someone else, you're more than likely going to resent it in them too.
Wow.
And so you have to, it's constantly being aware of yourself, healing yourself so that you can help others.
This is deep.
That's a whole nother conversation right there.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
doing that internal work. Like, speaking of that, like, how do you see this work envisioning it, supporting, like, how is this important to us as diasporans? Like, how do you think, how is this imperative to us specifically?
Yeah, and I think just like, I'm reading a book, Home by, I think, Yasi, that is how you pronounce her name. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. But it's interesting. I'm only like chapter 4 or 5, but it is about 2 sisters that were divided at birth in Africa. One went one track and married a white European, and so kind of got into privilege, where the other one came to America in the slave trade. And just that generational cycle of like that harm that, yes, you know, European white people did, but also we was a part of that too. But like, how do we reconcile that? The reason where we are right now, you know, in the Black diaspora, like who is still in Africa, who's in America, who has proximity to whiteness and that privilege, and who doesn't, and all these different things. Like, we need to like actually have ways of talking about that doesn't point the finger at one another, but just talking about like, this is how I feel about this. This is how it's impacting the way I show up. This is how it's impacting the way I think you show up, that I don't think is to your fullest potential. But like, can I create a space for you to find healing and restoration, instead of letting this cycle that started well before any of us was ever born continue to impact the way that I'm raising my kids, right? Or the way that I'm choosing my careers, because all of that impacts our everyday decisions.
Wait. So I know a book, I have that book, and I started it.
It's a hard book, isn't it?
I didn't know that you can get what you just explained from that. Like, is it a talking point? Is it a tool that you think that could like restore relationship with diasporans and continental people? Like, that's what I heard from your description. Like, those 2 pathways that those sisters had kind of speaks to our current situation now, diasporans and continental people. Like, because I'm very, like, my heart is to create more dialogue, create more space where we are restoring those relationships and like addressing that with continental people and diasporans alike, you know.
Yeah, and I don't know. One, I feel like anything can be a tool, right, to help and bring healing. It depends on how we approach that tool. I don't know if she specifically wrote that book to be that tool, to be that conversation starter. Yeah. But that's just what I see when I'm reading this, is like, man, like,
from your lens,
from my lens, it's like, this is what it's making me think, because like, there's things I'm very jealous of Africans who don't have to deal with whiteness on an everyday basis like we do in America. Like, I'm very jealous of them, right? Does that mean that, like, am I blind to ways that they can be jealous of me? Yeah, right. And so, like, just having that conversation where we learn from each other that we are all healing from what the white people did to us.
Yeah.
Like, let's just call it what it is. Like, we're all healing from the same trauma. It's just the way we experience that trauma and the way we're responding to that trauma may be 2 different things, but we're all healing from the same wound.
That's powerful.
And I think that it's always, anytime there's like some sort of conflict, some sort of online back and forth between continental people and diasporans, it's always in relation to whiteness and how white supremacy has impacted us. And like, it's really like, you know, we wouldn't be talking about this if white supremacy didn't have its impact. And so it's just like, how can we see past that and have like, one, like, see past it and like really look at the bigger picture and like how this is impact, like still the system is still working, like and keeping us like united and keeping us, you know, this infighting almost, you know. I think is really important. So yeah.
Yeah. One of the questions we always ask people who are in conflict is like, do you want to be right or you want to be connected? Right? Like so many times we're talking about who got hurt the most or who has the better opportunity, the better situation. It's all about who's right instead of being like, but how is this dividing us and how can we be connected? Right? Instead of, it's like how we're feeling and experiencing the harm, not who has the best perspective about the harm.
That's powerful.
I love that.
It's a t-shirt.
Do you want to be right or do you want to be connected?
Yeah.
That's the name of the podcast episode. So like speaking, how can people find y'all, find you? Can you share that information, please?
Yeah, simple website address, www.rjiok.org. The Restorative Justice Institute of Oklahoma. You can find us on socials, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, because our bread and butter is that training. We train organizations, businesses, because like, let's be real, the plantation still lives in our organizations and we have to go in, punch a clock, and if we are 5 minutes late, we disrespected the master, like all this stuff. So it's like, how can we be even restorative in those businesses so that when people are coming to work, they're not still being seen as just the work that they can do and not the human that they are. So yeah, you can find us on all those socials, and then you can always just reach me, Xavier, Xavier, at rjiok.org for my email.
You said a couple of things. Well, actually, you said a term, and I'm just wanting you to clarify real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
When you're saying you're trying to get people away from being punitive, what are some examples of that, just to bring awareness?
Yeah. So I think there's a big difference between punishment and accountability. And it's all just based upon, are you present or are you not, right? So punishment is about, all right, well, I'm stuck in what you did to me and I really need justice for what you did to me. And I'm not seeing your future. I'm not seeing the moment right now. I'm just really stuck in that past and eye for eye, right? Or it's really an anxious fear. Like when we're being punitive, it's really like anxious fear. So like Black parents, we spank our kids the most. Like researchers, like we punish our kids either by spanking or by any kind of like reprimanding, more than white parents or Hispanic parents. Like that's just what the research says. And I think Ta-Nehisi Coates talked about it. It's like, because we're afraid that like if they don't learn their lessons, they're going to get out into society and die, right? But like, or be murdered or not make it. And that fear of the future makes us really want to have more control over our kids. So we end up being more punitive, being so afraid about, you know, the future that we can't control, but we're going to try our hardest anyway. Accountability is like, what do I need to do right now in order to stop this violence from keep going? The violence that happened in the past, but that can have a future, but it's really about what can I do right now? What does this person need right now? What is the what are the boundaries? What do we need to do right now? It's just about responding in the moment and being very present to that person's need in that moment, not the future and not the past, in that moment.
I love that. Okay, thank you for clarifying, because I don't want to be punitive. So I was like, let me make sure I'm not punitive, but I got to figure out what that is.
Yeah, and more than likely you are. I am. Like it's something that has been conditioned in us. Like we have normalized punishment up and down this continent, and it just takes a long time of like, oh, what I just did there was very punitive. Like for example, I am not huge on giving compassion to people that I tried to give advice that, hey, if you do this, it's not going to work out. So my daughter, who has all the energy in the world, sometimes I'm like, hey, if you don't walk straight, you're gonna trip and bust your head, right? And if she does, I feel like, man, it's so hard for me to just be like, are you okay? I immediately go to, I told you not to do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's being punitive, because it's like, it's all about like, you should have listened to me. It's not about like, despite if she listened to me or not, right now she's hurting. And I don't care about her pain right now. I care that in the past she didn't hear me, like she didn't listen to me. So it's an ongoing process.
That's good. I didn't even think about it like that. I don't have kids, but I babysit. And as soon as they do something and they like crying, I'm like, yeah, you're not supposed to be doing that. So this is how you ended up in the situation. So I was wrong. I'm wrong for saying it.
See, it's not about being right or wrong, right? But are you connected with that person? Like you can be straight up. I could in that situation, it's like, hey, are you okay? Check on her, make sure she's good. And then have that conversation. It's like, hey, this is why I tell you, right? This is why I tell you, so that you don't hurt yourself. But like, if my first response is about me and the fact that you didn't listen to me, then that's me being stuck in my past instead of being present in the moment with her, right? Because I've made it about me and not her. And that's really like, that's all of parenting, right? Because if you really think about how do you define good parenting, this is what I love to do when we're teaching this to parents. People are like, I let them get that definition in their head. Like, how do they define what it means to be a good father, a good mother, good parent? Then I ask them, based upon their current definition, was their parents good parents? And so that makes them just choose, like, I'm either trying to be just like my parents because I had really good parents, or I'm trying to be the complete opposite of my parents because I didn't have the best parents. But if you're parenting, your definition of parenting, the way you approach parenting is based upon what you got and what you didn't get, who's left out of the picture? Your kids and what they need, and who they are. So it's like, it's all about getting unstuck from the past.
Yeah. That reminds me of, I feel like maybe my mom thought she was doing that to an extent, but she wasn't, because I still got beat. She would just be like, I'm doing this because I love you. She would always have this conversation before I would get a whooping, and she'd be like, I'm doing this. I'm like, this doesn't feel like love, but okay, girl, go off. She would always have to talk with me, and I'm like, why are we having this conversation? Just do what you gotta do, girl.
It's real. I'm justifying the fact that I'm about to whoop your behind.
What Black kid didn't get that talk though?
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness, that is infamous.
Wow, I love that though, how the whole restorative justice concept, it can apply in so many levels. You know, even when I kind of visited the whole our past episode situation, you really had me like look inward, you know, you experienced this is why you allowed maybe him to say that, or, you know, so it really does apply on so many levels, not just someone, you know, doing a crime, but just really, like you just experienced, like you just, the example, parenting. You know, I really love this stuff.
I really want to get into that, Queen, where you're speaking of kind of coded language, but if we can get into that, Xavier, that would be great.
Well, okay, so I guess the short version of it, because like you all pointed out, you know, there you have an experience. Everybody, especially Black people, we all experience things differently, and more specifically, our last episode, we spoke to a gentleman that was from the States, and then a gentleman
past yeah.
Yeah, past that. But so I threw out a question about essentially what does it
mean to be pro-Black?
What do you think? What does it mean to be pro-Black? And those answers, it was so night and day. And one of the answers basically didn't really sit well with Ray.
Right.
And I'm not going to say it sat well with me, but I think I looked at it differently. And, I am being very coded, but it's just, I'm trying to give a broad overview of like the fact that they shared their truth with us.
Yeah. I mean, we could say what he said. He basically said that he compared the continent, we're speaking continental people and Black people, he compared the two. Like the biggest thing for me was that part, even though there was a lot of, for me, problematic pieces, but that was the part that jarred me, was because I heard a lot of anti-Blackness, and like I am, as soon as I hear anti-Blackness, like I'm not here for it. I mean, I feel like I no longer felt safe in that moment, but it was like, he called Black people lazy. And he compared them to continental people, specifically Ghanaians who work hard. And then in the moment, I didn't know how to respond. And I feel like, for one, that was a layered comment. There's so many things that we're talking about here, but basically it was like point blank, Black people are lazy in America. Ghanaians can do circles around them. And for one, it caught me off guard. We are a new podcast. We're still pretty new, and I didn't know how we would go about addressing something like that. I was like, am I about to debate him? How do I have this conversation? And for me, it was hard because like he was like, oh, I know I'm gonna ruffle some feathers, and you were like, oh no, I love it. And I was like, oh no, like what? It made me rethink like our partnership. It made me rethink why, if we were aligned in what we were doing. And I think that for me, it's impacted us moving forward, because I'm like, is that what we're going to be doing? Is it going to be constantly like combat? I think we've tried to have restorative conversations and on our own, and we've gotten to a point, an okay point, but for me, it's been lingering. It's still like lingering. It's like, is that going to be a thing? Is that going to be like a something that's allowed? Because like for me, I was like ready to shut the shit down. I was like, take my name off of it. Like if like problematic, like anti-Blackness is allowed, like this is not what I'm here for. Like I'm not equipped for this. I'm not prepared for that. And so for me, it really impacted how I was moving forward.
I know for me, when he said that, I just, at that moment, I didn't take it personal, because I knew he had his own experience, right? Mm-hmm. He's talking about the people he experienced. I didn't generalize, even though I guess it was a general comment. I didn't align myself with what he said. However, I have also had my experiences, especially just moving back from Tulsa, where I've said some probably problematic things, and comparing Black people in Texas to Black people, or, Dallas to Black people in Tulsa. So I guess, you, Xavier, we gave you an overview of what that experience was like. So how would you approach that, what we experienced?
Yeah, so I think first, every time we do a restorative circle, we have to get grounded in the space and like kind of what our goals are. So if you don't mind allowing me to share my screen, and then maybe the people who are watching this can see as well. But we feel like as people, we always have access to a core self that's defined, or that can be seen as 8 C's. And whether you agree with that or not, we feel like when you're in these 8 C's, harm doesn't happen. So what I would love for you, Ray and Queen, to do is let's talk about what we hope to come out of this, right? Of this conversation. Like you personally, Ray, you personally, Queen, like what do you hope to come out of this? As well as, of these 8 C's, I'll give you time to kind of look over them. Which one of these 8 C's do you want to really lean into? All right, and you can see those, right?
Yeah, I can see them.
Off top, connectedness and curiosity.
Okay.
What stood out to me was compassion and connectedness.
And the 8 C's, because people who are listening don't see it, is calmness, clarity, curiosity, compassion, confidence, courage, creativity, and connectedness.
And so, Ray, what do you hope to come out of this conversation?
For me, I hope that we can come to an understanding of why, really have an honest conversation of that we can really understand each other's point of view, but also how we can take that connectedness, that energy, and kind of build a space that we intended to build with this podcast, which is a healing space, which is a connectedness space. Um, so I think that also just for me and Queen to come to a great understanding of each other.
So to understand each other deeply, but also how to kind of walk away with a plan of how to build on this space of being on, how to build on this connectedness and healing space that you want this podcast to be. Does that sound accurate? Okay. Queen, what about you? What are your goals?
My goal is to create some type of clarity for, especially when it came to this past situation. I'm not anti-Black, but I definitely want us to be able to create a space where people feel confident enough to share their perspective, and then us be ready to, I guess, break it down in a more compassionate way, without just eliminating what people have to say and their opinions. I want us to be able to have this space where, if someone does say something that could be problematic, us being ready to maybe help them create a different lens on what it is they're saying. So, yeah.
So create and build clarity on how to respond to people who may have differing views that can be even problematic, but that's just how they're feeling.
Yes.
But for y'all to be able to metabolize that to something that's clear and creative.
Yes.
All right.
Well, can I add something?
Yeah,
I also want if there's any unlearning and undoing that either of us have to do, I would like to take place.
Unlearning, yeah. That's vulnerability right there. All right, and what I hope to do, because I'm part of this space as well, and just for listeners, the 3 of these C's that I always go into any space with is compassion, curiosity, and connectedness. That I would not be able to facilitate any restorative conversation if I don't have those 3. But also a feeling kind of this need to be courageous on this moment. The fact that this is being recorded and we hope that this goes out, that I don't want to make a mistake. And so the definitions of these that is probably different from if you just look these up on Webster, but one of the definitions of courage is to strength in the face of threat, challenge, or danger, to take action toward a goal that others would find overwhelming. And then to take complete responsibility for one's actions and make amends to correct one's errors. And I love the last one, the willingness to reflect upon and explore one's inner world. I really want to just lean into that because I just really want this to be an authentic space. And then my goal is to start a conversation where that the tools in order to continue to have these restorative conversations when y'all do disagree, that y'all have a foundation of what that can look like going forward.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so it seems like, and from this conversation that Ray, you was the one that kind of experienced the harm. And earlier you said, I felt unsafe. Can you just share with what did that mean to feel unsafe in that moment? And how did you experience not just what he said, but how you felt like Queen was either allowing it or condoning it or affirming it or whatever you felt like, kind of go into really just how you experienced the moment, not necessarily
how I experienced the moment. I mean, for me, anti-Blackness is it's not necessarily about when I think anti-Blackness, I think it's holistic, it's all of us. Like it's you talking about all of us. And for me, I'm like very protective. I'm very protective of Black people, and I'm very aware that we uphold a lot of these harmful thought processes ourselves. We espouse it. Like the system is working well if we could just carry on with what white people intended.
So Ray, I'm gonna ask you, and this is kind of something I should do at front. When you're speaking, speak from I. So not every Black person do that, but
do what?
When you say when we perpetuate the system,
okay.
but sometimes, yeah.
Because I know that I can be guilty of it because I have been conditioned, like a lot of us, to espouse anti-Blackness. So in the moment when he said it, I felt like it didn't, I know people think like that, but it wasn't something I wanted on a platform that I was putting out. I also was experiencing like, it was personal too. If this is recorded, this is going to be put out. What am I going to look like allowing this on something that I am sharing with the world? And I'm intending to uplift Black people. I think that it was like a shame I felt in like, this is what I, I didn't vet the person, I'm just going 10 miles, going 50 miles an hour. I don't know if that's fast, whatever, fast, without thinking and really planning out. I'm like, am I equipped for this podcast? I think when I say I didn't feel safe, it's unsafe. It's just like, it felt like it was me who was only like feeling these things and like, oh, y'all are in agreement. And so anytime anti-Blackness is espoused, it is personal for me. And so if you're speaking anti-Blackness, then this is not a safe space, and so anything I create is intended to be a safe space. I think that it was just also personal because I didn't have the know-how to address it right away, so.
Yeah, and what can you share because I know y'all kind of cut that out, that part of the podcast out.
Yeah.
What are you afraid would happen if, and I know you kind of expressed like how you would feel, kind of that shame of people associating you to this anti-Blackness on your platform that you're helping to co-lead with Queen. But what are you afraid would happen if someone did like see you as anti-Black?
Well, one, like everything I do is about like loving Black people, healing Black people, and bringing big people in community. I lose my credibility. Like, what is my work? Like, my work is always centering Black people, and so I think that like I just then like I can't, like, I'm not in a position to be like doing this work if this is who I am, anti-Black, you know what I'm saying? Like if I'm okay with, anti-Black rhetoric on anything I do, like, I think that that's a part of it. Because if it were me, and I put myself in the listener seat, if it were me listening to something like that, I would immediately want to be, because I'm avid podcast listener, and I've learned so much. And if I heard someone like espouse anti-Black and it was co-signed by the host, I would be like, okay, I guess it's not the space for me, because of who I am and what I care about. Not everybody is privy, like you said, I'm speaking from what I care about, what my value systems are.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Queen, I just want you to respond to what you heard. So not get into how you experienced, just like Ray just shared all the things that what she felt from that, like kind of just witness to her however you want to witness to her. Like in restorative justice, I'm never going to advocate for someone to apologize for anything, right? If that person who actually experienced that harm didn't ask for an apology, but I do want you to just kind of witness to what she said.
In the most transparent way possible, I heard she cares a lot about what other people think. I heard that if someone else's opinion on her platform also it I don't know how to put this, but
let me slow you down real quick. We can get into that in a second.
Okay.
So don't analyze what she said.
Okay.
Really? Like, so if I were to repeat back what she said, and this is not what I'm asking you to do, she felt ashamed because one question, did she do enough? Did she vet? Is she equipped to even have this space? Is she the odd one out because everyone else is agreeing? But yet she has a different opinion. So it's like, is she isolated now? Then also just the personal attack, because like, if you feel this way about Blackness, do you also feel this way about me because I am Black? And then like, will I be able to continue to do the work that I'm passionate about because people are not going to take me serious when I talk about being pro-Black if I allow this? So just all the things that she felt, how would you respond to like that, not analyzing whether you agree or disagree with how she felt? Just like, this is your girl, this is what she felt. Like, how do you respond to
that? My response would be, don't think so hard. I don't know. I can't, it's hard. I don't feel that way. So I just know that if you know that you aren't anti-Black, that's all that should matter, in my opinion.
Yeah. Despite the circumstances of the feelings, how do you feel? What makes you feel inadequate?
Me?
And that's rhetorical. Like, just really think about the times where you felt inadequate, right? And think about the times where you felt like people wouldn't trust you, that you don't belong, right? And then really, like, I think we all experience those from time to time. And despite how we respond, like, just knowing that, man, that sucks to feel that way.
Well, I know specifically in regards to this topic, them speaking about Ghana and being in Africa, I've never been to the motherland, so I never felt like I had something to add to that conversation. So yeah, I guess you can call it inadequate because I didn't have anything to add to the conversation. When they speak about Ghanaians and whatnot, I don't really have an opinion because I don't have an experience.
Yeah.
So a lot of that time I let her take the lead, especially in that conversation, because dude had his comparisons, but I can't compare.
Yeah. So you shared some on the last podcast. I haven't got to listen, right, about your experience in Tulsa, right? And then can you relate to what some of the things that Ray felt from that experience?
Looking back at it, yeah. The aloneness, the the odd one out type of situation, being, definitely the aloneness for sure. At that moment, she said she felt alone and unsafe. In my experience in Tulsa, I felt alone and unsafe.
Yeah. And what about the inability to do the thing that you're most passionate about?
Yes.
Yeah. And if you can ask the people that you thought was on your side to do something different, to say something different, right? What would you want them to say to you?
To me?
Mm-hmm.
We got you. where do we need to pull up, just, you're not alone. We're gonna take care of this.
Yeah. Now, if you can, tell that to Ray about this situation. If that feels right to you, if that's what you really want to be for her, like.
Yeah, well, definitely, Ray, you're not alone. We are in this podcast definitely together. And I am here to create this, I don't know, like whatever response we need to have when things are getting uncomfortable, like I'm definitely willing to create that response. I don't want to ever feel like, or I want you to feel like I'm co-signing anything that goes against our brand. But that could just, there's a learning lesson there for us to have something in place to where we as a group say, okay, we can't allow this type of talk.
Yeah.
For me, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say.
I was just gonna say, for me, well, and I appreciate that, Queen, where it is about guests, but it also is about you and me and our thought processes on things. It's like, for me, it wasn't even no longer about the guests. Now it's about like, what are you gonna espouse, that I feel maybe doesn't align with what we're trying to convey here. Like, if that's like what you agree with, like, is this what we're going to be doing? Like, I that's not what I want to be aligning myself with. Like, are you going to espouse something like that, and how we're going to handle that? That is how I felt too as well. So it was more so about, no longer about the guests at that point, at this point.
I know in regards to this specific situation, considering I've never been, like I said, to Africa, when that gentleman was sharing his truth, I love the fact that he shared his truth. I wasn't me co-signing what he said, because like I said, I don't have an opinion on whether or not we're lazier than people in other countries, because I've never been. But for me, I just wanted to create a space where he felt safe enough to say that. So I wasn't necessarily prepared to combat it. But as soon as he said it, a red flag came up for you. So I want us to create a space to where if something triggers me, there's something that we're both like, all right, we're about to dive deep. So I want us to create a space to where if you acknowledge something, or you witness something that maybe I didn't witness, but you know that it could be problematic, if we create some type of safe word, or we have some type of button that we push to where you educate not only our guests but myself as well. I want us to have a space where we're both educating each other.
It's a learning moment for everyone.
Yeah,
exactly. And I want to say this: we can't get too quick to the problem solving. We're not actually in that space yet. I don't think we actually hit the root of it, right? Okay. And let me, I think this goes back to do you want to be right, or do you want to be connected? Because when we talk about whether or not it was the best thing to allow this person to share their truth, and even if that truth is anti-Black, y'all, the goal is not for y'all to agree on that, right? I think the goal is, how are y'all in the midst of disagreement? Because a different episode, it may be something else that Ray disagrees on, that Queen allows, or that Queen disagrees on and Ray allows. Yeah. The goal, what y'all are missing, is that y'all are not staying connected, that y'all allowing whatever someone else says, or what, even if it's what's coming out of your own mouth, disconnect y'all instead of staying united in that front, right?
How do you know that you're not centering connectedness, and when you're not centering connectedness?
Yeah, so when you can get really into compassion I think is when you can really get into connectedness. So Queen, when I queued up Ray to share everything that she felt, and that was your opportunity not to agree or disagree with her, all right? But I think naturally, in order to defend yourself and what you did and what you allowed, we immediately went to defensiveness and to have been like, man, I know exactly how that feels. And you said something of, I don't want to allow someone to say something that's going to bother Ray, right? So that's about the event, right? But deep down underneath that event is like, what you should be passionate about more is, I never want Ray to feel alone on this podcast. You know, like if she's having a hard time, I want to be there for her, even if I was wrong. I'm a, you know, do what I need to do in order to feel connected. Even if she's wrong right now, I'm gonna at least hear her out and stuff like that. But I want her to know that she can come to me and address this in a way where she feels safe and connected. Because I know that's exactly what you needed in that moment here in Tulsa, and you didn't have it. Mm-hmm. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes. Now, in a real life situation, like you said, going forward, this could happen again. What steps do you recommend if something was to trigger her, but I didn't catch it, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And we're about to move to that first before we go to the next part, Ray. Do you feel like Queen understands the position that you were in and how you impacted? If you have a part of you that don't feel like she really gets it, say that, right? Because we can't just move on. Yeah. We can't get to the solutions if you are not really convinced that she got you.
One thing I do want to say is I do want to reassure Queen that I'm not opposed to differing opinions, but I'm never going to entertain anti-Blackness. It's just this is a thing. But as far as differing opinions, I'm not opposed to differing opinions. But for me, where I draw the line, that's anti-Blackness, that's like racism. People are like always talking about, anyways, disagreement, like that's something I just don't tolerate. But I think that do I feel Queen understand? I mean, what she said, don't think too hard, don't you care about what people think. That to me let me know that she still she doesn't necessarily whatever the question you said, like understands, you know, what I'm feeling or what the importance of or what we're discussing, you know. And like for me it was like minimizing, you're just thinking too much, you're thinking too hard. You know what I'm saying? Or stop thinking, care about what people think. And it to me is not, it can't be minimized to that, you know, in my opinion.
All right, Queen, how does that feel? Just tell me, not arguing back, just how does that feel to hear that?
She's right. I feel like she's right.
All right, and Ray, how's it feel for her to say that you're right, that she did do that?
I think it's bigger her to, I appreciate that Queen of just like hearing me out and being like, yeah, that makes sense. You're right. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Now, Queen, now that she kind of said that part, you know, you agree that she's right. Is there anything else you want to say about your original response? Because, you know, I coached you through the next part. I think you did say what you needed to, and you know, you've never done this before, so it's fine. But like, is there anything you want to follow up to that on?
I believe that Ray is a lot more knowledgeable than I am about what could be anti-Black and not.
And how does that make you feel?
It feels like she has a strength, you know, that I need to educate myself on, especially if, you know, we continue this podcast. You know, I want to make sure that we're on the same page as far as what anti-Black is.
Yeah. So I told Ray this before, but like Ray is so pro-Black in the most beautifulest ways that it can be intimidating sometimes. Of like, do I have it all together? Like, you know, I may say some stuff that's anti-Black and stuff like that. And it can be intimidating sometimes. It's like, just like, am I gonna, you know, do I need to walk on eggshells to make sure I don't say the wrong thing? Do you ever feel that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Which is why I made the statement to Ray. I feel as if something else was to come up, she'll just want to quit the show. And I'm not really wanting to create a podcast where I'm editing everything someone has to say. I want us to get to the point where we can be open and combat whatever she may see anti-Blackness to be, instead of just, editing everything.
Yeah. So continue to share how it feels to be doing this podcast, having to walk on the eggshells, and even in that moment, how you were really trying to like live into your own definition of pro-Blackness by allowing a Black man to say what he felt. So can you kind of share kind of your experience of that episode?
Absolutely. I know when we started this podcast, first of all, when Ray and I would be in conversation, she let me just speak. And I know I've said some problematic things, but something still in her felt like we should have a podcast. So that was unfiltered, in my opinion. That was raw. That was us living in our truth. And so fast forward, when the podcast started and we're implementing guests, I'm thinking we're going to allow them to, live in their truth. If they say something, we're going to speak up. And so going through this experience and going forward, it feels like it's going to be policed. And I that isn't what I believe. We never had that type of dynamic, which is why I believe our conversations in the past have always been so great, because if I said something, she'll say, girl, nah, or she said something, then I'll be like, hold on, wait, what you mean by that? But now it doesn't feel like we have that openness now. Now it feels like if they don't agree, or if someone says something, we got to be ready. And that's a lot more pressure than what I originally anticipated the podcast to be.
Right. Can you just, not justify, not argue back, just kind of witness to everything that Queen just said she felt in this transaction?
I didn't ever look at it like that. I didn't. That's a little more clarity of how that impacted her, of like the policing, and like I think that's another way of looking at it. Like, not just feel like we're policing. I'm feeling policed. I'm feeling like the guest is gonna be policed. I feel like I gotta be policed. I wasn't looking like that. I think that's something that I definitely want to consider and understand more, and see how we could not that be the feeling, and just how she was like, I would rather it be a feeling of like, if something is said, then we could just, like you say, offer another viewpoint, instead of just like rigid rules and rigid, like it doesn't have to be rigid, let's just talk about it, so yeah.
Yeah, Queen, when you said it feels like being police, I got chills.
And I was like, oh shoot, that's not what I want to do. Yeah, police.
Like that's your truth right there. And I can definitely see that. So do you think that Ray gets it now, that kind of your perspective after you just heard it? Okay.
Yes, I do. I do believe she understands.
Yeah, awesome. So now, Ray, like we'll come up with a plan next, right? But what do you need from Queen from this episode, the next episode, to make sure that you're never going to feel that when you feel alone, you feel isolated, when you feel like even that like your passion may be hindered? What do you need from Queen in order to go forward?
I feel like Queen has given me everything I need to go forward. I think stop me if I'm wrong, because here's why I say that, because I feel like at this point it's me and my comfortability. I feel like Queen has showed where she's like, I'm willing to learn. A queen has showed where she's like, I'm willing to understand. I'm here. I'm in the conversation. I'm willing to have the hard conversations. And being like, there's things that, you know, I may not be privy to, and I'm open. You know, I think that those are ways in which you move forward. That for me, that gives me everything I need to move forward. But for me, it's like, now I need to just get to the point to where if something is said, how can I need to know how to myself engage in the conversation, you know? Yeah. And yeah, that's my take.
Yeah, so something very beautiful just happened. I don't know if y'all caught it, right? When Ray, you said she's giving me everything that I need, that her willingness to learn and understand and to be in the conversation. But then you were able to take accountability for your own actions. Like, now it's really about me and my comfortability, right? Mm-hmm. And Queen, I think that's what you were trying to hit at earlier, is like, she cares a lot about what other people think, right? Mm-hmm. It's so much better when she can actually own that for herself than for someone to put that on her, right? Like, I have the confidence that like people are always trying to grow and be better, but it's not something that we can impose on them. It's something that they need to pick up for themselves, and they will take it a lot further than if it's actually imposed on them. So like the fact that Ray got there just because you witness her pain and you say, I'm gonna support you. Now she's going to be holding herself accountable as well as what you can do going forward. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out because that was beautiful, Ray. All right, Queen, what do you need from Ray going forward to make sure you're not feeling policed?
Ooh, I would love for Ray to, in those moments, stand up for what he believes, you know, combat whatever it is that is problematic and educate both the person that said it and myself. If I was the one to say it, you know, I want her to, in those moments, take that time to really use our platform to educate.
Wow, that's beautiful. Ray, how's that feel to hear that?
I appreciate it. I mean, it excites me. It also is just like, it definitely puts the ball in my court. It's like, all right, girl, if you care about these things, then do it. Like, be about it. Then, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. But Queen is also making the space for you to do the thing that you're very passionate and that you're very good at. You know, you're very passionate and very good at. And yes, it can be scary, and I already know off top what something that I think you should do. But like what I'm hearing, I just want to repeat back that Queen will definitely continue to like lean into curiosity and seeking understanding whenever Ray does feel like there's something that's kind of anti-Black, like Queen will do that. And then so you're good with that, Queen, that you'll take that on?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then Ray, are you willing to, like, maybe it's not going to be easy off top, but really start to lean into speaking your truth in those moments?
Yeah.
I would like to add something.
Yeah, go ahead.
After that incident, when we stopped recording and she opened up and told me why she felt uncomfortable with having that out, her explanation was spot on. And I wish at that moment she would have just told dude that, you know, because I think he would have got it, you know. I think he would have understood. And so, yeah, like, you have a powerful opinion and you are good at educating. And it's just, you know, reaffirming the fact that you have this platform to do that. And I am willing to learn as well. Like I said, I'm still learning.
Yeah. And if I can advocate for you real quick, Ray, and let me know if I'm off. I know that when you are a passionate, very analytical, and you're able to identify the problem, you don't want to always be known as that person that finds the problem in everything. And so it's like, if there's not a safe space of like the people willing to listen, you don't want to butt in and teach people, because then it's like, oh, here comes Ray, know it all, and always find something wrong and stuff like that. So it can be tiring. I know that personally for myself. And like, Ray, if there's anything else you wanted to share, like, what part of you kind of makes you freeze up in those moments of speaking your truth? Because we all know that you know how powerful your voice is, but in that moment, there's a part of you that kind of drives your bus and it's like, no, we're not getting this right now.
Yeah, no, that definitely is one thing, of just being like, I don't want to be seen as the person who always gonna find the wrong. But also for me, I'm a processor. And so like in the moment, I'm like, I feel something, but I don't know it. I don't even outside of a situation like this, I'm a processor. And sometimes I don't really even know what it is that I feel and how I even want to respond. And that's also that what arose too. That's another layer of like, insecurity, or for me, it's like it takes me a while to figure and make the connection into of what I feel and to like explaining what it is that I want to say. And so I think that that is also what I was feeling too, of like I feel something, but I'm not sure what it is at the moment. And then it wasn't, of course, like what you said, it wasn't until after the fact that I was telling her, you know, what it was that I was feeling, which I think we recorded that. We can actually play that at the end of this if you want to. Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. I think that y'all are already figuring it out. Like y'all, I feel like y'all are bringing up stuff that y'all could have said earlier, but maybe weren't comfortable. And now you're already getting to the point where you're having these open conversations. And so lastly, as we kind of just, before we get into problem solving of like what we can do better next time, Queen, how can you hold Ray accountable to speaking her truth? I think you creating a space where you're allowing it is the support part, but what's the accountability part where you, if you ever feel like, oh, I can tell Ray kind of shut down and I can sense she has something to say, but she's not saying it. What is something that you can do to kind of hold her accountable?
I can slow down the pace and let her know, hold on, I'm seeing you got your gears turning. Do you want to say something? You know, giving her that floor instead of, you know, letting her internalize it. Let her know. I feel like that might have not sat well with you, or that you got something to say. Do you feel comfortable sharing it? You know, just letting her know that I realize your energy changed.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I also, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. What was you gonna say?
And I also just want to say, Queen, I'm like, just know that I'm not here to be right. Like, I want to know, like, if I if I offer a different viewpoint, I really want you to be in the conversation with me and be like, well, this is how I'm seeing it. Like, I really want us to like explore our different viewpoints too.
Yeah, have a dialogue. All right, and then Ray, if you ever feel like you are exploring a different dialogue and maybe it's triggering to Queen in some way, and she kind of slows down that willingness to learn and understand, what is something you can do to keep her accountable to getting back into that curious place instead of I'm right space?
Asking questions. I think that's always a way to trigger curiousness or espouse curiousness. I could ask her, remind of this conversation. Are you want to be right or you want to be wrong? Or I don't know. I can ask her. For me, it's always like asking a question to get people to pause. I think asking a question causes people to pause and remember. And so for me would be to ask a question.
Yeah, awesome. I think, how's that fall on you, Queen?
I agree. You know, in that moment, when I said I love it, because I say I love it all the time, but I just love when people are in their truth. But if that felt like a cosign at that moment, I wish she would have been like, do you really love it? So you agree with me? Then I would have been able to clarify, like, well, I don't believe all Black people are lazy, but I love that he's sharing his truth, you know?
Yeah. That's beautiful, beautiful. I think y'all got it. I feel like if y'all do those things, right, that support of like Ray speaking your truth, but also like when she says, hey, are you speaking your truth? You like take the opportunity to do it and to slow down. And then Queen, when you're, making that space that you're willing to learn and understand, that will open her up to speak her truth. And then if you ever feel a certain way and get defensive, like just, if Ray kind of just asks you those questions, you just accept those questions. Like, I feel like with that, y'all can overcome any disagreement or anything. As far as like this situation, Ray, you said something. It says, I will allow disagreements, but my line is anti-Blackness and racism, right? I want to come back to this real quick. Why is that your line? And is that line in itself being anti-Black? Only white people can be racist. Only white people can be anti-Black. We can't be anti-Black.
No, we can't be anti-Black. I have no tolerance for, like, because for me, my locus of control, and maybe that's the wrong word, but my locus of control is us. And like, for me, it's really important how we see each other. Don't wait, let me just say, it's really important how we see each other and talk about each other. Like racism exists, whiteness exists. I'm not trying to combat that. Like, but for me, it's just like, how are we speaking about each other is really important to me. How we see each other is really important to me. Like, that's undoing all that and shit, because I feel like that is what causes us to see each other in negative ways, is white supremacy and whiteness. It's like, bro, like, can we, like, I don't want us to be in that space. Like, that's a space that I want us to be elevated past, you know?
Yeah. So realize that is what that's where the policing stems from. You said my locus of control. You don't control that shit. I'm gonna tell you right now, you don't control how Black people see themselves. Like, and like, when you do, that's when we take a policing mindset of like, oh, I can make this safer for Blackness. No, like, we have centuries of hurting each other via whiteness that you're not going to undo in your lifetime.
Can I influence it though?
Can you influence? That's the difference. I think that's where it has to be. It's like, but can you influence it if you're not in the conversation with it? Like, if that's your cutoff, is like, this is my line, I ain't allowing it, then you are no longer in the conversation with it.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree. I definitely agree.
And then Queen, all right, you say, I love it when people speak their truth, all right? All right. But when does allowing people just to speak their truth allow them to be more identified in that truth in that moment, instead of actually finding the door to healing?
I can be honest, I still need healing. And when dude said what he said, I resonated with it, because I'm still going through my own hurt. I'm comparing Black people, like I said, so I'm still in the learning. I don't think I'm in the teaching, which is why I really want to use this platform to put people on like you, so I can learn as well, because I can never say that I'm super anti-Black, because I might say a lot of stuff problematic and not even know it. I am a system. I mean, I'm product of this system as well, but I am willing to learn.
Yeah.
So,
if
I think someone said, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, if someone says something that I feel like I can speak to, I will. Yeah.
So I think also having a clear definition for both of you of like, what does healing Blackness look like? Not just like being pro-Black or, not allowing anti-Black, but what does it look like for you to be a part of the healing process of Black? You, Queen, you, Ray, right? Because like, there is a point, like, even in the circle, where like, I do want the person who experienced harm to be witnessed to, right? But like, if this just stops with like, oh yeah, we let you speak your truth, we let you get it all out, but we're not actually talking about the next steps of accountability to make sure you're not stuck in there, then it's really not healing anyone. I think that's the same thing for you. Like, once you've gotten out, now if we really love you, Queen, we'll talk about that ways in which you need to heal from what has happened to you, because we love you and we want to see you grow. If we just allow you to vent every time and just like, oh well, that's just her trauma, then now we're identifying you as your trauma and feel like that's just your normal, and that's not loving, that's not healing. And I think that's what also like as you're having guests come on, they're speaking their truth. Yes, love it, but love it into the next phase at their time, like not your timetable. But like, okay, but how can we open up curiosity and compassion to this person so that they can keep going and not get stuck? That makes sense.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. Shoot.
Yeah, I feel like our circle is done. I thank y'all so much. I thought it was beautiful. I was like, I don't know, getting into this if it's gonna work out right. Especially after Queen was like, and she didn't quit caring about what people think. I was like, oh shit. I was like, we'll see how this goes.
What I think is you care about what people think. I was like, oh, okay. That's what we're doing.
We going there. Yeah. So, but no, I think y'all really leaned into what y'all said. Y'all going to that, especially that connectedness, that compassion, that curiosity. That I feel like is a great circle. So I think
I'm looking forward to listening, rewatching this. I'm gonna say that. But yes, I appreciate you so much, Xavier, for coming on. This is by far my favorite episode. And I hope we keep the same energy and having candid, wonderful, beautiful conversations like this moving forward, where we're all learning and growing. I'm truly grateful to you, Xavier, for this time and extending it to us.
Yeah,
yes, I definitely enjoyed this therapy session.
Group there. Xavier, you have a weird relationship with that word, right? Like,
yeah, it's like, I don't know. Because I know that Blackness has a weird relationship with that word. It's like, is this the good therapy that we want, right, or is that just like a why you trying to fix me therapy?
Right.
So
yeah. Well, thank you. I think you should where you can find you on social media. You can find us on Black Around the World _ I believe under Black Around the World _ on Instagram. What?
Because we always forget. Is it underscore or not?
Underscore, you're right. YouTube, Black Around the World, Spotify, Black Around the World. And then Xavier, you can help us figure out how to get it on other platforms. But right now we're on Spotify, YouTube, and our social media is Instagram. So
yes.
Well, thank y'all. I gotta do this brunch. Y'all enjoy your Sunday.
Yeah.
Your family.
Yeah. Y'all stay Black.
Stay Black.
See you, Queen. See you. Bye.